Hello everyone, how are you? Welcome back or welcome to the channel. Today is Tuesday, March 11th, so I'm filming two videos in a row, but I was very excited to film this video because this is a question that I get asked quite often, and it's how do I find topics to journal about? I use this planner, my Hobonichi cousin, as a place for reflection, and this can be a lot of things. It can be a reflection of something that happened on that day. It can actually be like memory keeping to figure out how I feel about everything that happened, or it could be just a thought that I pull from and I just kind of do half a commonplace entry and half a my own thoughts and reflections about certain topic. So I thought today we can discuss that in depth. It's gonna be kind of a chatty video, so I hope you guys have some time to, drink some nice coffee or tea and we can chat together. So I prepared some notes today because I thought this is kind of like I want to talk about it, but I feel like also it's very overwhelming to find a structure to talk about it. But basically, and I will show you an example, there are some days like this one, maybe last week's video, moments of being, how to reflect on the art of being present. How do I find these topics, or how do I know that I want to write about something? So there's different ways I do it. First of all, let's start with the list of websites that I love to read to find good essays. So there may be some days that I don't want to journal about something that happened to me because maybe nothing really happened, right? I went to work, came back home. There are a few things that I may want to talk about, but I have my Hubunit 2 weeks for that, so not really something that I want to discuss deeply. So I may be confronted with a blank page and sit down and just wonder, now what, right? Now what should I talk about? So there are some websites that I like to check throughout the week and that I just make notes about topics, and I may just go back to them when I have time. So I have a list of topics that I want to at some point reflect on because there are some ideas or thoughts that I think often myself or that I've never thought about, and I want to see my own opinion. So yeah, for example, this article was by The Marginalian. The Marginalian, it kind of started as a commonplace website by Maria Popova, and she just researched by herself. She's the only contributor about topics that she finds interesting, and they range from politics to science to books to art. So it's just whatever she finds maybe interesting to talk about. And I find the Marginalian very good because the essays are quite long and she pulls from a lot of different books and quotes. So that is a good website to check. Then my favorite one is Substack. Why? Because I love to read it more, not such in an academic way sometimes, just more personal thoughts, and you can see like the train of thought that someone is going through. So I am subscribed to a lot of newsletters that I love, and that I'm gonna link down below some of them. But I also go through my feed quite a lot because there are some people that kind of repost or restock, I think it's called, and you can find lots of different articles about different topics. And I think because I follow people that are interested in the same things that I'm interested in, I find articles that are about commonplacing, journaling, keeping a notebook, artists. So there's a lot of things there for me to just think about. Though I find the search engine on Substack quite difficult. If you search a topic, it doesn't usually pop up. So I don't really recommend it for just writing a word and finding a list of articles. Sometimes it's useful, but I think today I put solitude or silence, I think it was, and there was not really much of anything related to the topic. There were some things that came up with it, but they were not related to what I was searching for. So I don't think it's the best platform to search topics, but you can come across a lot of them. Then I have the Paris Review, very classic. They have amazing artists and authors interviews. I think it's brilliant for interviews. And some people think that how can you commonplace about an interview? It may be quite hard. For example, there was a Toni Morrison interview where she talked about how she is a creature of habit, how she always journals with some mechanical pencils or pencils, the type of notebook, and how important it is for her the space that she creates to journal. So that just, not only I thought it was beautiful the way it was written, and I copied some like literal sentences from that, but also it made me reflect on my own idea about, instead of buying lots of things, trying to, with the most like expensive things that I have, but rather than just accumulate, establishing a relationship with those things, becoming a like creature of habit. So yeah, I don't know, those, it just can, you can reflect on those topics about yourself, if that makes sense. The marginality we already talked about. These ones are good. I think the Paris Review does have a paywall, and some of newsletters in Substack do have a paywall. But the Paris Review, I think, and the Marginalian, you can really read everything. Lit Hub is the same. You can read everything you want. I don't read about politics. I'm not really interested in politics, and also these journals for me are a way to find joy. And I am someone that I'm very sensitive, and I get overwhelmed with politics and anything that has to do with violence. So I actually don't read much about things that are happening in the world. Like, of course I want to be aware of things, but it's not something that I am consuming a lot, because I do feel extremely overwhelmed, and it's not a feeling that I want to be or sit in with. So I do, and for all of these websites, I do try to search by topic. So usually they have a search engine where you can just select or filter the topics like literature, arts, culture, philosophy, nature, politics if you're interested, and then you just can find the topic, right? So instead of like going through millions of articles or thousands of articles, I just kind of filter by the things I'm interested about. So yeah, Lit Hub is basically almost about culture and literature. They do have some politics on it, but I think it's much more about cultural politics rather than just presidencies and stuff like that. Then of course the New Yorker is great. Again, there's a paywall, but the ones that sometimes you can read are amazing. I also like long reads. So I think long reads is not active anymore, but they do have a huge catalog, and they are very well researched, quite long essays about whatever it is. They have a lot, and they have a very cool feature that it is like you can press a button and they randomize an article for you. So instead of maybe going through everything, you can say, oh, choose an article for me. And if you're not really, you're not vibing with it, you just can press again. So I think it's quite cool. Then, what do you call this? JSTOR? This is if you have gone through university, especially in the humanities, you will be familiar with this website. This is brilliant, but mainly here you can find literary or academic journals and PhDs and stuff like that. I don't really often go there because sometimes it's like maybe an essay or an article can be like 80 pages long, so it's just basically kind of short book. But if you have time and you love to research, JSTOR is great. but again, it's very academic. It's usually used as a searching platform for students or academics, and I used it a lot, really, really a lot. And I don't know how many you can read a month. I think there is a limit for you to read a month, but again, I think it's pretty reasonable. And then I'm just going to mention a few of them. The Yale Review, I really like it, and Hedgehog Review. So yeah, those are some of the websites that I use. And I don't visit them daily. Maybe I don't even visit them for a whole week. But when I have time, and this often happens to me, I want to read, but I don't want to read fiction. Fiction, funnily enough, for me, it takes more brain power than nonfiction does to read. So sometimes I just don't want to read fiction, and I don't have a nonfiction book with me. So I may go on my phone, and I have a notes entry on my notes app, and I have all of these websites linked. So I just press the link, and what I do is I type the title on my notes app, and I just copy chunks of the article that I want to at some point go back to and think about with my own thoughts and my own words. So that's what I do. So how do I go about? For example, how I decided to journal about moments of being or the art of presence. So this is something that it happens to me quite often. I have a thought. It's something that has been, taking space in my brain, but I don't know how to put it into words. Maybe I don't dedicate time enough to reflect on it. And then I will be going through one of these websites, and I find this article, and I'm like, oh wait, this is exactly what I've been what I've been thinking about, but I didn't know how to phrase it. And this happens to me, for example, let me show you, or maybe it's not here. Yes. So this one happened the other way around. I found this, I thought it was interesting and journal about it, and then I realized that this moment, the pockets of light that I journal about, was a moment for me to just stop and be present and be amazed by the beauty of like everyday things, like the light hitting my walls, rather than just rushing through my tasks so I can just go to work. So this can happen, or the other way can happen. It's been something that I've been mentioning a few times in my journal, and then I come across this article and I'm like, oh, this is exactly what I wanted to talk about, just in a much more put together, smart way than I can do. So that is something that's when I decide to journal about it. So today we're going to have a small part of journal with me, and let me just kind of pull that or just summarize, I guess. If you've been here for a while, you know that I've been complaining quite a lot about how noisy is the street that I live on, and how much I yearn for silence. However, kind of on the contrary, or yes, I rarely stay in silence. I rarely enjoy silence. Like if I'm not doing anything, I may have a podcast on. If I am showering, maybe I'm listening to music. If I'm washing the dishes, I may be listening to something. There's constant chatter and noise that I find comfort in. So I was thinking, like, why is that? Why I don't want to sit in silence? What is wrong with that? So, sometimes we may be overwhelmed with our thoughts, or silence feels a bit like solitude in a bad way, like boredom, and those kind of chatters create some sort of elusive or kind of an illusion of company. So I yearn for silence, but when I have it, I just dismiss it. And today I was going through, I think, I don't know if it was the Hedgehog Review. I will show it to you later. It was about silence. So I just have some sentences. It says, "And in search of silence and darkness as a physical thing." So that made me think a lot about my relationship with silence. How a lot of people, which is tied to mental health and depression, a lot of people don't want to sit with their thoughts. And me, I don't suffer from those things, for mental illness or any sort of depression. But I have a strange relationship with silence. I'm very kind of scared of silence, especially at night. I don't like it. It freaks me out. So I wanted to just kind of reflect on that. Why is that? And why now, as I grow older and more mature, I crave more silence and quietness and just be by myself. Like how I was so social when I was younger, and now that as I get older, I find that I'm very tired and like my social battery is like -3. So yes, that's one of the things, something that I know I've been thinking about a lot, and then I come across an article and then I realize this is such a good way of putting that into words. And I may just grab some sentences from there, but I don't only focus on one. So after finishing that article, I just immediately typed kind of like, I don't know, like the relationship with silence, or silence as a physical thing, and a few other articles pop out, and I read some of them, and I just again copied some sentences on my notes app about things that I felt I wanted to talk about. So that's one way I do it. Sometimes in this way, I think there's a combination. Sometimes I am reading a book or I'm listening to a podcast, and this topic, I don't know, let's say motherly love or relationship between fathers and kids, then I may want to know more about, and then I do research those topics. And again, I do have a list of topics that I want to research when and if I have time. So that also can happen, that I have a topic that it's very broad and I'm interested to know more about, but I just leave it in my inbox. And when I can do it, I will research. And if I have a space, like I think this month, yes, I have this page blank or half blank, maybe I can journal about one of those topics that I have when I have time. Then if I'm reading something, I may get inspired. For example, if I'm reading a big book like this one, I know a lot of people have been missing me talking about books, so today I will talk about books. I bought this book because I bought it on Kindle, but it's so good. I needed it, so I just purchased it. It's called Our Monsters, Unruly Bodies in Feminist Art. The concept of our monsters is brilliant. This is a very brainy book. It's a very heavy on gender theory and feminist theory. So if you're not familiar with it, it may be a little bit hard to understand, but it's a brainy one. It's a very much in the academic sphere. So this is a very big book, and there's so many topics. So I may just choose something small, like one of the arts. Well, I think this is a performance or one of the exhibitions, and I just may find this picture printed and talk about it, and just talk about briefly what it is that this is trying to say. It can be like that, but when it's a very big book, I find that sometimes it may be great to just find a smaller topic and journal also about it. But this I think it works very well when you have nonfiction books. And as time passes, I read more nonfiction than I read fiction, which I could have never imagined. But I enjoy a lot reading about nonfiction and essays. So yeah, I go through phases, but I think when I finished university, I read so much fiction that after that, I just really craved to hear people's thoughts. And of course, in fiction, there are people's thoughts anyway. But I think that sometimes for commonplacing and things like that, it's easier when you read nonfiction books. Then another thing that I do, for example, if I am in love with Lauren Elkin, Or, for example, Deborah Levy. So if you've been here for a while, you know that a few months ago I read Real Estate by Deborah Levy and loved it. I thought it was amazing. And one thing that I did is I put her name, I researched Deborah Levy on Spotify. And then one of my favorite podcasts, which is the Great Women Artists, I think it's called, she had an interview with the host, and she was talking about Deborah Levy's relationship with art, which funnily enough was about oh sorry, I think I moved my table. Was about Leonora Carrington, that again, if you've been here for a while, you know that I did a commonplace entry because I read one of her memoirs. So I thought it was fascinating that Deborah Levy, which I loved, had a relationship or a close affinity with Leonora Carrington. Where did it go? Oh, here it is, right? So I found that the synchronicity of things, and often I read in a very tight sphere, how to say that, like if you like the literary booktube, I think it's called, you would see that people read the same authors over and over again. They read Deborah Levy, Rachel Cusk, Janet Winterson, Sheila Heti, Virginia Woolf. You know, these names, you know, are in, like, you can find in all everyone's videos, because these authors somehow are conversing with each other, even if they are not intentionally doing it. So yeah, if I often do that. I try to find podcasts where the author is talking about maybe the book or about their inspiration, their ideas, or in this case she was talking about Leonora Carrington, for example. So I think that is also a very brilliant way to find new things and information. And you can also do that on YouTube, but I think usually YouTube length of interviews are very long, usually are an hour, so where podcasts tend to be between the 35 to 40 minutes. So I think, like, while I'm working, it's much easier for me to listen to a podcast than rather just watching a video. So that's another thing that I do, is I just type the name. And sometimes it's kind of hard to find articles, so I'm gonna share with you a trick. Sometimes when you Google Deborah Levy and you just have the list, it's quite hard to see all of the articles. But if you go to images, usually the images are the covers of the articles by the New Yorker, the LA Times, whatever it is. And you can also read the the title. So it has like this visual pull and some information about it, and it's also quite good to access some articles that way through the images on Google search. So yeah, I think this is the way I do it. I hope it's comprehensive, but basically is consuming a lot of things, like reading a lot. Basically, the way I can think about different topics is because I'm constantly reading. And so, and just find it what you like, and it takes a long time. I don't know, I'm 30 now. So I'm turning 30 next month. So I guess I've had time to learn what I like and what I want to know more about, and things that I'm just completely not interested in just learning, basically. So yeah, so today we're going to journal together. So what I think I'm gonna do is I'm going to pull the page. So I'm gonna make the page, and then I'm going to, once I'm done, talk to you about how I kind of like threaded everything together, I guess. So maybe you can take that as inspiration. I don't know how useful this video or how much sense I'm making, because I'm sick. I didn't mention it, but I've been sick for a long time, I think from March 1st. And you can see that I was feeling sick. Oh, this one is a good one too. My journal is my garden, my thoughts are the seeds. I think I read an article on Substack, I think it was, and then from there I just thought about what that meant for me. So sometimes you just can, like a clickbait, you just can grab the title of something and try to think about it for yourself. Can be useful too, I guess. So yeah, let's start with this and we will talk about it later. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to be using to write, I'm going to be using this Ohuhu felt tip pen because I have to clean my vanishing point because it was writing like this. I don't know what color is this, like grayish. It was, I don't know if I dropped it or what happened, but it's not really flowing. And I changed the ink to a diamine ink and it's not flowing right. So I changed it again to carbon black platinum. And I'm trying, because I just inked it, so I kind of clean it and I inked it. I'm gonna wait a few more hours until, you know, the ink flows properly everywhere before I get scared about what happened here. But yeah, I don't know if something, like the nib looks fine, but at the same time it doesn't look fine. I don't know, I maybe my mind is playing tricks on me. But I don't think it's just, you see, it's not really black yet. Let's wait for this one. So I'm going to use this Ohuhu calligraphy pen because it's so black and it writes so well. This is the one that I use here. It writes fantastic. So yeah. Okay, so here we are. Finally, these are kind of like my thoughts. Basically, what I wanted to journal about is how, when I was younger, being in silence or just silence was kind of it kind of meant that you have like a poor social life, people who spend so much time alone, people who just wanted to sit in silence. My parents, my mother used to worry, right? Like, oh, you don't have anyone to hang out with, you're like here by yourself alone. But now, how I treasure that, how that is something that I actually need to feel grounded, to feel that I can connect to also my surroundings, just not this non-stop of chatter in my head, not only from my own voice but just from others. How I am finding ways of feeling a bit more just kind of grounded, and I've been cutting down in how much I consume media. I still read the same amount because that I think is very beneficial for my soul, but I have been, you know, cutting other things that I think I was trying to kind of hide sitting with my feelings, and how refocusing my attention has helped a lot. Also, I am still in search of like this physical silence, like being in a quiet apartment where the floors are not creaking all the time, the doors are not smashing everywhere because the walls are so thin. We can hear every conversation from our neighbors, how the train just constantly is a constant. We live very close to the train, so we can hear actually a train from our house. And how I crave that. Before, when I was living in Spain, because I lived very near the ocean, like a few streets down, I went with my dog a lot in morning walks, and the beach was silent, like nothing, just a few swimmers, and in winter it was dead quiet, just the ocean, and I loved it. I like that was one of my, like, some of my favorite moments, and how I lost that, and I'm trying to find ways into incorporate more, I don't know, maybe sitting with nature, where maybe mountains and hikes where there's not that much noise. And yeah, so that's how I reflected on it, and it's pretty simple. I just kind of journal a few paragraphs, and that's enough. I don't think you have to make an essay. This is not going to be published. This is something that you want to, you know, maybe just let some of your thoughts go or reflect more. So that's kind of the way I find topics, and they come at me very random times. But I think like having a list of things that you want to at some point discuss can also help you in not like also feeling I have nothing to journal. If you have a list of things that you've come across that you at some point would like to discuss, I think that can also help you like filling up maybe bigger pages. So yeah, that is all for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Next week we will have an analog archives where I will talk about my all my reads that I've done in the past few weeks or the past month, and we can just catch up also on my pages. So I'll see you guys very soon. Have a wonderful day.